Hello, I'm Kevin J.N. Hughes. As promised, in my introduction yesterday, I'm going to be covering the Christian idea of how Christians understand Sabbatarianism and why. And we're going to be looking at the early church. But first, I wanted to explain a little bit about my own background. So I used to be a Seventh-day Adventist, and when I was a Seventh-day Adventist, I was actually an assistant pastor. And then eventually, I realized that a lot of the things taught in Seventh-day Adventism simply couldn't be squared with the Bible. And so that sent me on a journey of discovery that, praise be to God, eventually led to Holy Orthodoxy. But in the meantime, one of the issues that was a very troubling one for me at the time was this doctrine of the Sabbath, because it seemed very clear to me that Sabbatarianism was biblical. And so I think there are lots of people out there who may be in that same place. And I think it's worth examining um, the doctrine of the Sabbath from the perspective of the Orthodox faith. From the Adventist perspective, what they do is they basically will take the Old Testament and they'll say, see, there was this command to keep the Sabbath, and then they impose a lot of what Christians do on Sunday onto Sabbath keeping and say that this is biblical. And it's interesting because what they do is they shift the idea of the day of rest to the idea of a day of worship. So now let's examine John Strickland's Age of Paradise, and he can show us from the perspective of the earliest Christians why that simply doesn't make any sense.